Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get started in just a minute. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We are going to get started right away. We've got a lot of amazing speakers participating in our webinar today, so we want to make sure we use all of our time and really get into the major topic that is at hand. Quick introduction, my name is Eleni Polikouniadou. I'm the co-founder of Centali, which is an environmental verification company. We're one of IFC's EDGE certifiers globally. Today we have a wonderful group of panelists with us today. So we've got Phuong Nguyen, who's the Edge Manager for Asia at SGS. We have Jiawei Goh, a Real Estate Sustainability Manager at Decathlon, and Atul Gupta, the Head of Business Development at Decathlon. We have Sophia Wong, who's a Senior Manager of Corporate Communications and Sustainability at Champion REIT. David Z, the Assistant Technical Manager at Keysen Properties. Junchao Sun, the Director of Sustainable Finance at Standard Chartered Bank. And Farida Lasida Aji, the East Asia Lead for Green Building Market Transformation at IFC. So really, as you can see, incredible speakers and incredible lineup. Today, our plan is to have some short presentations from our speakers, and then we'll get into a longer panel discussion, which will last around 25 minutes. We welcome questions. There's a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So please do submit questions that you might have around retrofit, around the value of retrofit, how these companies have done it, and we'll try to get to it during the panel conversation. The webinar will be recorded and will be shared after the event, so you can always come back and find all the information that you've heard today, and we'll also be sharing all of the slides at the end. So sit back, enjoy this conversation, and please be interactive, be participating. We've got the chat function as well as the Q&A, so we look forward to hearing all of the questions that you have. And with that, I will pass it to Phuong to start us off.
Okay, yeah, first, thank you, Eleni, for the nice introduction. So let me share my screen. All right. Yes, so thank you everyone for taking the time today participating in this webinars. So I just have a bit of the introduction to our companies, SGS. So as the world leading in testing and inspection and certification companies, we SGS, we have a lot of opportunity to work with many companies from large corporations to SMEs across the globe, assisting them to fulfill their goals towards sustainability developments. As a big companies, we also have a target towards sustainability, and you can see that we has become the carbon neutral organization since 2014. So there are a lot of other standards that we are also pursuing for sustainability. So having more than 2,600 offices and laboratory around the world, we have clearly faced ourselves why existing buildings really matter on the routes to zero carbons. So according to the UNEP, buildings together with their construction activities accounts for approximately 39% of the energy-related CO2 emission every year. And then 28 of that is operational carbon, and then the remaining is 11% is embodied carbons. So nowadays, approximately 75% of the existing buildings globally are expected to still be in use by 2050, and they will need to be retrofitted as the legislation change to enable the transition to zero carbon target by 2050. So older buildings tends to have a poorer energy performance, hence contribute a lot to the greenhouse gas emissions. And all of those shows a very great risk to all of the stakeholders, including the occupiers, the owners, and investors who want the legislation change, and all of those buildings become unusable and unlettable. So that is not the only benefit that like not exposing to the legislation change is not only the only benefit of green retrofit. So there's a lot more benefits on green retrofitting. So one of the easiest one that you can see is that you can reduce the operational costs, also enhancing your brand, the corporate brandings of your companies. Green retrofit also helps to improve the client satisfaction in terms of well-being, or helping you to reach your CSR target. And of course, there are a variety of benefits that is beneficial to different stakeholders, as you can see on the slides. So despite numerous of the benefits, so why we don't see a lot of green retrofit around? So there's a few of the challenges. So the first challenge that we often see is that it's the change in ownerships. So you see that buildings often go through many cycles of occupation with different owners and tenants, and the newcomers tends to change or make alteration or adding new technologies into the buildings. And it's not very easy to understand on how the building was constructed or how it was intended to be operated beyond its initial design. And in other words, it is incomplete information of the performance of the buildings. So that is also the second challenge that we face, which is the lack of information. And also this is the major reason why a lot of companies avoid to decarbonize their existing buildings. So the shortage of information include either the building performance informations or the cost associated with making change, or both of that. And it is because they don't really know whether this is like their decision is right or not, and the investment might be wrongly placed. Green retrofit is a very difficult task because there are very limited options for the implementation comparing to the new builds. So with the new buildings, you can easily change the design. So for example, changing the envelopes of the buildings or making the natural ventilation better. But for an existing buildings, you don't have a lot of options for that. And also it's becoming more difficult in like a specific environment, like a tight urban environment, where you might impact the neighboring buildings because your buildings is sharing the same space with the other buildings. And also it might cause disruption to the other occupier when you do the retrofitting. So these are the very simple steps for the green retrofit that you can use for the buildings. So first, you need to evaluate the baseline of your buildings, referably against a verifiable standards, because that will allow you to do the benchmark and then for future certification. And the second step is to define the retrofit actions for each of the buildings, which are financially feasible and brings enough of carbon savings to ensure your milestones are met. And during the implementation of your plan, you required to access to green finance, so in which the verifiable standard basis is very useful for that. And the last step is to replicate that on the other buildings of your buildings portfolio to scale up your carbon reduction. So for all of us, the end goal will be the end goal will be building operation is reaching to zero carbons. So that's the final goals of all of us. So this is an overview of today's topics. I'll leave the stage to the speakers to share about the stories along the journey of decarbonization.
Thank you very much, Phong. Let's hear from the people that have taken this journey. I'll pass the microphone on to our wonderful colleagues across in Malaysia for Decathlon.
Hi, okay, let me just share our screen. Can you see our presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So just to give you a little bit of history of Decathlon, our global footprint, we started in Malaysia in 2016, and today we have 13 stores in Malaysia, out of which five are EDGE certified. 4 stores are level 1 certified, and 1 store is level 2 certified. Worldwide, we have around 1,747 stores, 74 warehouses, and we have distribution in 60 countries. Now, our journey with the EDGE started last year when Decathlon as a group decided to work with the IFC for the green building certifications. And Decathlon Malaysia was the first country to get a store certified. We started with a store in Shalam, and today we have 5 stores certified.
Okay, why we decided to do this green building retrofit is because we are facing main challenges as like global challenges. For example, the energy crisis, which is driving energy prices up higher and higher. And there's also climate change, which is detrimental to our business since we are a sports company and the earth is basically our global playground. And we also have internal challenges that we set for ourselves. For example, our RE100 commitment that we will attain RE100 status in 2026. And lastly, we have challenges like lack of forecasting tools. We are unable to forecast the performance of a new store that we are going to open, and also we are unable to completely grasp the performance of our old stores. So these are the challenges that we are facing. This is our in Malaysia, this is our real estate sustainability strategy. Mainly, we have 5 pillars. So all 4 of the 5 pillars can be assisted by pursuing this EDGE certification and using the EDGE app, which comes with the certification. So discover footprint, it will help us in discovering our footprint in all stores. We can then manage the footprint in all stores. Then we would adapt to design our new stores better through green building design adaptation. And lastly, we replace high carbon energy to renewables like solar. And eco-mobility is just another initiative that we take, right? So now I will display how does EDGE certification help us achieve our sustainability goals. There are 4 users that how we use this EDGE app that comes with the certification. Firstly, we use it for preliminary analysis. Then we use for certification and roadmap planning. Then we use for negotiation support. And lastly, we use for budgeting for retrofit, right? So for prelim analysis, the EDGE app will basically, after we key in all the data that we obtain in existing stores or new stores, we can perform initial stage analysis by keying in building parameters. And then we can insert energy efficient measures to calculate the percentage of savings we can achieve. And lastly, we can improve the savings percentage based on the recommended measures in the design phase, or even retrofit in this case. So from the EDGE app, we learned that in Malaysia, a store like a Decathlon store, this is our consumption breakdown. So it's 61% comes from the air conditioning system. Another 17% is from the equipment, 21% from lighting and others. So in this, by looking at this graph, which is provided by the EDGE app, we will know that our strategy will have to attack the most consumption, which is the AC system. Okay. Also through the app, by analyzing all the energy efficient measures, these are the distribution of the measures to counter a specific task to reduce the AC energy consumption. For example, we do passive design improvements like Milo mentioned, Pong. So it's like changing the glass facade, having a less heat infiltration into the building. Those are passive design improvements that we can do for new stores. And so the next section will be efficient aircon system. Basically, we will have to procure a more energy efficient AC system in order to reduce our carbon footprint. Then we have efficient lighting system. And lastly, we have monitoring, energy monitoring. We will have to know how much we consume, and renewables like solar and other measures, right?
So just to add over here, when my colleague mentions about efficient AC system, I'll just share something that we are going through right now. In one of our store, one of the first store that we opened in Malaysia, the air conditioned system which has been put over there is a very old kind of a system and which is very inefficient. So last 15 days back, our 50% of the air conditioned system crashed. So for us, we have two options. One was to get it rectified and spend a very small amount. And second was to work on an efficient air conditioning system, which can help us to reduce our consumption in long term, as well as reduce our carbon footprint. So with the help of the app and with the guidelines which have been given to us, we were able to procure the system. In fact, we just signed the PO today morning only. So yes, today we have to spend a little bit more, but when we see our return on investment in 2 years or three years, I think.
Yeah.
In 3 years, we are able to get back our money. So thanks to the app for changing our mindset.
Okay. So the app also allows us to find out which are the areas that we need to work on. For example, you can see some of the stores that are in red. We will have to work on the energy portion of this store in order for us to improve our consumption, to reduce our consumption. And then there are also stores that are lacking in the material. That means it has, during the store was constructed, it was quite heavy in embedded carbon footprint. So what we can do is we would spend some money to do a reassessment to ensure that we can provide proof when pursuing for the certification. So this is just an example of the roadmap planning, right? So with all these completed models, which you can do easily in the app, we will know what sites and what sites already meet the criteria and which areas we need to work on in order for us to meet the criteria. And then we can build a roadmap towards 100% age certified buildings, right?
In terms of negotiation, we've learned a lot in last 12 months by working on different kind of projects. So the new stores that we're making now, we've already started to put these kind of conditions in our negotiation with landlord. So last week we signed one standalone project with one of the big landlords in Malaysia. And one of the three criteria that we've signed, that it has to be Edge Level 3 certified. So which means now both us as well as landlord will start to work on those kind of initiatives. So for example, I mean, you can see one of the conditions that we put in on the agreement. This is directly from the screenshot that we've written in agreement, wherein we are asking landlord to follow the conditions which are must for us to install the solar panels. In Malaysia, it is quite complicated to put solar panels for a store because of the local regulations. So now with the help of app, we have started to put a lot of conditions so that we can have a certified building.
Yeah. So lastly, this is the case that my colleague mentioned previously when we did the selection of aircon to replace or to fix. So the Edge app is able to provide us simulated data, which I can then compare with the simulation data that we have done on our end to actually double check the figures before we decide to invest. So this is just an example that we managed to go within 15% of the both assumptions, both simulations. So we can confirm that the savings will be more or less in that area, right? Okay, right.
That's it.
Thank you very much to you both. Lots of, I think, interesting examples, and I'm getting lots of questions about the slides. So the slides will be shared with all the participants after, so that you can take a look at some of this information in more detail. And if you have questions for Decathlon specifically, please pop them in the Q&A. We are now going to move over to Hong Kong, and I'm going to pass the virtual microphone to Sophia Wong from Champion REIT and David C. from Keysen Properties.
Thank you. Let me share my screen first. You see my screen? Okay. Hi, this is Sophia from Champion REIT. I'm glad to share about Champion REIT's journey on achieving green buildings and how this creates shared values and positive values for our stakeholders. A little bit background here. Champion REIT is a real estate investment trust that owns and invests in a portfolio of properties in Hong Kong. We are committed to sustainability and has been implementing green initiatives in our buildings to reduce their carbon footprint and promote environmental practices. Our Langham Place Mall, as you could see upper side on the map, is the first property in Hong Kong to attain the EDGE rating. We also achieved other green buildings, like the first existing building for 3 Garden Road in Central. Here you can see we have established our 2030 ESG targets in accordance with SDGs of the United Nations, including the reduction of carbon intensity and also the water intensity. And as you could see, to achieving green building is also one of our 2030 targets. Not only did we establish the 2030 targets, we also working on the 2045 net zero roadmap to advance our climate actions through technological innovation and also facilities upgrade. We also achieve various green buildings, and also we work out with banks on sustainability linked loan in order to align our finance flexibility with our ESG targets. We also promote positive values through partnering with our stakeholders. Like you can see in the photo, on the left-hand side is the Love Play Farm, is an urban farm in our Langham Place Mall. And on the right-hand side is the classical music performance in Eaton Club. Actually, it's a co-work space in 3 Garden Road. So we don't only create sustainable buildings, but also create and contribute to a more socially responsible society. Now, I would like to pass the time to my colleague, David, to share more about our journey with EDGE. David, please.
Okay, thank you, Sophia. Let me share my PowerPoint. Okay, how everybody? I'm David from Keysen Property Management Services Limited, which is property management of Langham Place in Hong Kong. First of all, I would like to thank entirely for inviting us to introduce S certification achieved by Langham Place Mall in 2021. Thanks for the support from Centrally SGS and our Sophia's great effort to let Langham Place Mall achieve the certification of first EDGE project for existing building in Hong Kong. Okay, let me introduce how Langham Place Mall got the EDGE certification. After reviewing the detailed design, implementation of ongoing green initiative and operation of our building, we then set our target to achieve level 1 of EDGE certification, which required 20% savings in energy, water, and embodied energy as compared to the baseline of EDGE certification. It is only one-off certification and no certification required. Here is EDGE certificate showing the results achieved by Langham Place Mall. We got 22% in energy savings, 27% in water savings, and 95% in less embodied energy in materials under this scheme. Okay, this is the summary showing the major saving measure accredited to Langham Place Mall. Energy saving measures were mainly to retrofitting of lighting, air conditioning, renewable energy, and high U value of wall, roof, and glass. For water saving measures were mainly attributed to low flow control of portable water supply and flushing water supply. For embodied energy saving in materials in existing building, there was no major retrofit of wall, roof, glass in mall, and therefore we got the credits. Okay, let's go through the measures with some photos. Okay, and here is the skylight provision for L4A atrium and L12 mini atrium, and with timer control for dimming system, so as to save the energy consumption in lighting. There is green roof provision on L4A flat roof to achieve this credit. Also, a retrofit of traditional fluorescent lamp and halogen lighting to LED light to get lower lighting power density. And using occupancy sensors for dimming control system. And also apply demand control regulation by CO2 sensors to control fresh air load when CO2 level is low to save energy on chiller plant system. Also, optimization control of chiller plant by installing monitoring systems such as water flow meters, temperature sensors, and differential pressure sensors in chiller water systems so to achieve this credit. Also, energy meters have been installed for different building service systems and chiller plant equipment and connected to building and management system for energy analysis, so to conduct ongoing commissioning work. Solar panels are also installed on roof of land-based mall for generating renewable energy into grid to get this credit. For water savings, low flow urinal and water closets have been installed. For kitchen sinks of tenants, low flow adjustment of faucets by control valves to achieve the required standard. Okay, finally, for less embodied energy in materials, here is the assessment result for reuse of existing floor, wall, roof, and glass, since no major retrofit work has been conducted. Therefore, no large amount of new building material has been used in existing building of land-based mall. These are all the highlights of major feature and ongoing improvement works of land-based to achieve the EDGE certification. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David, for that overview and really clear understanding of really what it takes to be able to meet the EDGE standard and retrofit a building. I think we've heard from 2 examples of companies doing it. Now let's shift gears a little bit and pass the floor to Jin Chao and hear from the financing perspective, because this is the #1 question and obstacle that we get across the world, that we want to do retrofit, but how do we finance it? How do we really find the money to be able to do it? So Jin Chao, over to you to tell us a little bit more about what Standard Chartered is doing in this area.
Thank you, Eleni. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. So hello, everyone. Today, I'm going to take a short 5 minutes to go through one of the successful cases that our bank has closed last year. Shui An Center's sustainability-linked loan, which was launched in May 2022. So this syndication was launched in size of USD 751 million with a 5-year facility tenor. And the special features of this case is that it's the first asset-backed syndicated SRL in the Shui An Group, and meaning that we are setting up KPIs for a single asset as compared to the whole group. And the syndicated SRL received a very well overwhelming market response with nearly 1.5 times oversubscription. So if we look at the case more closely, there are 2 KPIs being set up for the asset. The first, both of them are linked to energy improvement and retrofit. So the first KPI is to improve the energy efficiency of the asset building beyond IFC EDGE level 1, meaning at least energy efficiency reduction of -20%, spreading over the next 5 years with a long tenor. And then the second KPI is to upgrade the assets existing BIM Plus certificate to gold in 2024, and then maintain gold level in 2025 and 2026. There are a few quite interesting implications of this case. Firstly is, given that it's asset-based financing, in the market, most of the time, it's the most common approach is to label this retrofit financing as a green building financing. However, there are quite a few restrictions for this type of labeling. Firstly, it is required that the group will need to reach some sort of a pre-assessment before they obtain this financing in order to label it. Then secondly, you can only use the fund when you have such a need for the retrofit. The format of SL allows the borrower to have a time buffer to prepare themselves for the retrofit plan, and then the retrofit plan will take time gradually to happen during the loan tenure. And then secondly, it also allows the borrower to enjoy the margin satchel adjustment as they meet the KPIs and the SPTs of the KPIs. And thirdly, even though it's asset-based financing, it's also a very good showcase and opportunity for Shui On Group to allow the assets contribute to their ESG commitment and help them to facilitate in their transition pathway. So that is the sharing on the Shui On Group case. And then there are another few thoughts that I would like to share with the audience here on what considerations a bank would make when we finance a green retrofit project. I guess the most important consideration from the bank is that our loan or our financing is indeed used for the borrower for the expense on the retrofit of the building, and that we want to be sure that after the retrofit, the building will indeed reach the level of green building or say energy saving levels that we would require. That's why at Standard Chartered we have set a few criteria for this type of financing, because I see this is also one of the questions I see from the Q&A. So in order to assure that the borrower will reach this level of green building, we usually require the borrower to take a pre-assessment before they start the financing. So for example, IFC Edge would allow the borrower to take this self-assessment on mobile, and the bank will usually take reference of the pre-assessment in order to facilitate the financing process. And then secondly, we will embed the classification clause and time points in the documentation where the borrower is obliged to indeed obtain the green building certification at a certain time point. If they fail to do so, then the loan will be immediately declassified as a green loan in order to protect bank from greenwashing. And thirdly, I find it very useful, and I do see a trend recently in the market that there is also an introduction of green building insurance from insurance companies. And the intervention of insurance company would assure that the retrofit process is properly tracked and monitored, and that the retrofit building will indeed end up with a green building certification as an additional protection for the bank. So that's my sharing. Thanks everyone. Back to Eleni.
Thank you very much. And I see quite a lively debate going on in the Q&A. So I think we'll come back to you about financing questions soon. I guess one quick one, Junchao, before I switch and go to Ida. But if the sustainability-linked loan KPIs are not met, what happens to a loan? So, for example, you mentioned that with you had certain KPIs on efficiency improvements. Are there penalized in terms of financing rates, or what happens if certain KPIs aren't met?
In the Asian market, usually there will be a penalty margin rate applied to the borrower, just so that we make sure that the borrower is on track with their commitment and promise. But the failure of not meeting the KPIs will not result to even of default for the loans, if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you very much. Since we're on the financing topic, I'm going to now pass the question on to Farida from IFC. IFC is certainly coming at this from a slightly different perspective as a multilateral development bank, but what appetite are you seeing across the Asian market and globally really for retrofit? Is it a topic that's coming up more, and what's IFC's stance when it comes to investing in retrofit?
Right. Thanks, Alani, for having us. And hello, everyone. So yes, definitely this is an area where from IFC with Edge, we're pushing it more and more. So when we started with in green building space really about 13 years ago or something, right? We focused pretty much on new buildings, right? Because in the countries, we see that in the countries that we operate, we're seeing, new buildings coming into the market, and we want to make sure that they are efficient. But as we progress in that space, now we're pushing more and more to get more involved in the retrofit as well, right? So from IFC, we're at least coming from at least two complementary angles, right? One, I think the EDGE certifications, which was mentioned already by the other panelists, right? So within that, we also provide technical assistance to especially some clients or people who are yet to be familiar with EDGE. And then also we, from the kind of a back end side of things, we continuously updating, maintaining, doing studies, cost analysis and all that, so that we can continuously update the systems, right? And then to your questions on the investments, correct, IFC is the private sector kind of investment arms of the World Bank. So this is also an area where we're involved, right? And then we've been doing some, just to kind of maybe some examples, right, where we combine our kind of green buildings EDGE certifications where with our investment initiative is like we invest in energy service companies in ESCOs, for example, where the IFC loans then provided to the ESCO will be able to then provide energy and water saving to support their clients. So the ESCO clients will then have performance-based contracts with the clients, whereby a saving in energy costs from the projects can be used to repay the capital investments. So that's one example. And then we also have examples of green loans to a number of our clients. We have that in Thailand and in Indonesia, where I'm based, and I'm based in Jakarta, right? And also in other countries across the world, right? An examples in the regions is where we invested in one of the largest hotel owners in Thailand, and then they use it for retrofits of their 5 large hotels in Thailand, right? With the proceed, they will then be able to change the lighting, so LED one, they put double glazing, they put head pumps for hot water, and then they change the chiller to more efficiency, high efficiency ones, and also solar PV. So something like that is something that we've done. On the technical assistance side of things and in retrofits, we also provide them, again, as I said, especially to those clients who are not yet familiar with EDGE. At some point, we we of course pass them on to edge experts that we have in different places, right? So a case on that is in the Philippines. We have Neo Properties, where they committed to go on edge zero carbon certifications for the portfolio of 7 office buildings that was constructed between 1999 to 2016, right? So, and then they embarked with us on the plan to retrofit for 3 years. And then, you know, we're doing that. So it is also possible to do that. And another example is IFC invest in district cooling. And this is in 2021, where IFC committed to invest in a district cooling project in Asia. So it's targeting approximately 100,000 refrigeration tons for serving industrial, commercial, and retail developments across India. And I see that actually here in the audience, one of my colleagues who leads South Asia from IFCH is also here, Atif Sayed, right? So I think also to Eleni, there's some questions on support. So yeah, thank you so much for providing the SGS contact, but we also have people on the ground in South Asia, in East Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
So we see opportunities, and in retrofitting, especially in Asia, right? In warehouses, logistic hub sectors, hotel chains, and retails, and we're very keen on these projects. Eleni, thanks.
Thank you very much, Ida. And I think, I mean, the ultimate connection is being able to channel all the financing. So I think the perspectives from the bank and from the multilateral development banks are super helpful to really push this forward. We are getting a flurry of questions, which is great. I think there's quite a lot of questions around the approach of looking at something from a model's perspective versus an actual perspective. So I want to touch on this from a couple of different of the panelists. I'll start with Phuong, which is a question around, is this theoretical approach of modeling and doing this assessment using the Edge app suitable as part of a feasibility assessment of retrofit projects? And do you have any examples of some of the work that SGS has done in helping clients doing some of this gap analysis?
Okay, yeah, so basically, like, one of the approach, like one of the first steps that I mentioned in my previous presentation is to understand about your base, like the building baseline and the performance of your existing, of the status of your energy performance of the buildings. And Edge allows you to do the self-assessment with the database, the ready database collected by IFCs. And based on your self-assessment, you'll be able to compare your buildings with the Edge baseline. And from there, you can easily identify the area for improvement. And you can do a little bit of the financial calculations to identify the costs associated with those improvement areas, whether you would like to implement the change or not. So that's how you can really do with Edge app, and the Edge app is actually free, so you can just start it at any time.
Thanks, Phuong. And maybe shifting from the owner perspective to our Decathlon team, some of the questions which I think have been answered in the Q&A, but I think worth kind of pointing to as well, is this difference between the estimated savings versus actual savings, and if you have any information on what the tangible impact has been from going through this process. And I think a follow-on question from something that you said is also around, when we're thinking about the ROI, you mentioned that, you know, it's a slightly higher investment upfront right now, but you're looking at an ROI of 2 to 3 years. So kind of tying both of those elements together, have you seen the actual savings coming through yet? And also, did you have to really battle internally to get that approval for that higher upfront cost? Or was the mindset within the organization, because of your bigger commitments to RE100, to all of the sustainability strategy, a strong enough reason to be able to justify that higher initial upfront cost?
Okay, it's a very long question, so so I'll try to answer this in parts. So the first thing is, yes, our commitment to RE100, yes, helps on the ideology side. So at least it's easier to communicate. However, if for organizations without this sort of mindset, you still can use this communication. However, it has to be on the ROI perspective, right? So today in the market, if we want to invest in, if we want to get very accurate predictive data, for example, an AI prediction of the consumption of an air conditioning, for example, it will cost a lot of money, right? So on the flip side, if we use the H app, which is free, we can get a reasonable amount of accuracy out of the prediction, right? So number one, it's a free solution, basically. We still can get some sort of idea. If let's say we invest in this air conditioning system, how much of savings we are getting compared to the baseline. That is one a data that we would never get for free, if not because of HF, right? So it applies to every single measure that we tend to do. For example, if we do a LED retrofit, like if we compare between the LEDs, so it's either I give a calculation to my management for them to verify, or I get the calculation from someone that's trying to sell me the LED. So if I get a quotation, analysis from someone that's biased, that is trying to sell me the product, it reduces it makes it not so trustable, right? So in this case, if we have the H app, it's like a third-party, non-biased simulation that we can use, and we can show it to the management that it's by someone else, not the person that sells me. So it increased the confidence level of the analysis, and it's easier to sell then. Right? Yeah, and to answer to the other part of the question, wherein you said, was it easy to convince the finance team? You know, I will tell you, so this year, because of this inflation and everything which everyone is facing, everywhere we have a huge pressure in terms of cash flow. So one of the option was, I can tell you, I can share the numbers with you. One option was to spend 70,000 Malaysian ringgit to get the existing system rectified, or to spend 400,000. So we're talking about almost 5 times the flow. So why it was easy? It took me just 20 minutes to convince the finance why we should spend 400,000, because of the data that we got from there. So we have different options available with us, and with the kind of information we feed in, it was easy for us to understand, okay, if we invest 200,000, what is the kind of savings we get, and what is the payback? If we invest 400,000, what is the impact in terms of real savings? What is the difference in terms of our CO2 impact? So we could have a real kind of a comparison with different kind of efficiencies of air conditioning system. After that, it's very easy to take decision.
Thank you. And I guess this is also a question we can ask to our financier panelists with Jun Chao and Farida, which is, as bankers and as lenders, why are you comfortable accepting the edge estimated savings? I think we're getting a lot of questions around, you know, is there a level of comfort around what's coming up from the Edge app? And since projects are being financed, I think the answer is yes, but maybe we can get a little bit of an insight into the banking perspective and sort of what you're looking for in terms of the data. Are you getting actual operational data as well? I think that was a question that came up on the retrofit financing from the banking perspective, but not sure which one of you wants to jump in first on this.
Maybe I can start first. I've seen the question asking why Edge and not LEED and other certifications. So from my observation, as the other panelists have already stated, it's not easy to convince the property owner to go ahead with a retrofit just for the upgrading to the green building standard. So essential questions they would consider is the benefit and cost related, and also time consumption, time frame of how long they need to obtain the green building standard. So in this case, I would say Edge certification provides a very good ground for the property owners. because it does assess the three key areas, namely water, energy, and material efficiency, which are the key three elements for retrofit. But at the same time, the assessment time period is relatively acceptable. So usually you would obtain a formal certification within a few months or half year time. Whereas if you go ahead with a LEED, or say down here in China for the China 3-star retrofit standard, the cost will be much higher, because the standard is much more, the scope of the standard is broader, and it ultimately come to the economic question for the property owner, whether it makes sense for them to go ahead with this expense plan, and also with the given the time efficiency. So that's why I think so far for the retrofit properties, retrofit projects, we have seen there is a preference from the market that Edge is a much preferred option as compared to the other certifications.
Thank you, Jinxiao. Rita, I don't know if you want to add anything on top of that.
Great, thanks, Melanie. I think from the Edge point of view, we understand that this is very important, right? Because one of the barriers is really to convince the building owners, the investors, the finance people of the benefits of the retrofits, right? And so therefore we continuously maintain and update the apps. And if information like we hear from Decathlon this afternoon, like Joey and Atul, they've done their own analysis and share with us that there is a 16% difference, right, between their own calculations and with the Edge app. And this is important. I think if we keep hearing from on the ground, and then we'll continuously update and maintain the systems.
Thank you. I want to bring in Sophia a little bit. So Sophia, from a REIT perspective, certainly REITs have an incredible opportunity in terms of portfolios of existing assets. From your experience and looking ahead in the future, what do you think is the best way for REITs to really look at their portfolios, and how can they really implement a retrofit project at scale? I know it's a big question, so but definitely keen to get your opinion on this.
Thank you. Sure, it's never been easy, especially for existing buildings, which we have been discussing today. We think that it's very important to understand the market and understand our tenants, because at the end of the day, our tenants are what we enjoying our space and our properties. For example, take Champion REIT as an example. Both Lighting Place and Three Garden Road are grade A assets. And that's why we keep listening to our tenants' concern and try to meet their requirements. And we need to have a longer vision. Otherwise, we just don't do anything. But then we need to have a longer vision, and also to maintain a high standard of sustainability commitment to foster our asset growth. For example, in recent years, we set up a flexible workspace or urban farm. In recent years, we are also working on some lift modernization projects with some touchless operation. And also we are like having toilet renovation or having some IoT technology for various use, etc. I think with very clear long-term strategic vision, and also have a clear plan how to allocate the capital, so that REITs can reinvent their existing asset portfolios at a meaningful scale. Hope I answer your question.
You did, thank you. And I think it's the realization and the acknowledgement for everybody that we know that retrofit isn't simple, and it would be false to say that it is. But I think what we've been hearing today across the board from all the different stakeholders is that because it's difficult doesn't mean that it's impossible. And by taking the steps and using the information, the data that's available, it is possible to really move that needle, and really thinking about scaling across all kinds of assets and really scaling it with in mind the goal that we're all working towards, which is this net zero goal that is coming down the line, and it's coming down pretty quickly. I have quite a few questions left in the Q&A. We will get back to you via email, just a lot of contact requests as well. We will be contacting you after this so that we have a chance to really wrap up this webinar. I want to give each of the panelists a chance to answer the following question, which is, what is the one thing that you think will help accelerate the retrofit of existing buildings? We've got representation from different countries, different segments of the value chain across real estate. So I think we'll get a nice diverse response of opinions. I'll follow the order that I see on my screen. So Fuang, if you want to start, what do you think is the one thing that will help accelerate retrofit?
Okay, yeah, so this might be a little bit of the repetition, but the first step is to understand the current status of your buildings. And then that will help you a lot in making the decision for retrofit. And then you can just start your self-assessment of your existing buildings right after today's webinars with Edge.
Absolutely. If you don't know it, you can't fix it. Next, Sophia.
Sure. I think it's the resources allocation. The resources include the time, the money, and the human resources. That's very important to have a good plan on the resources planning.
Thank you. David?
Yes, and I think retrofitting existing buildings, and there is quite a big barrier to limit. Is probably the limitation of green solution, and so many retrofits are being implemented into the building years to years. So I think new technology is also required in an important role nowadays.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. Atul?
I think for me, it's all about the awareness. To make people aware about the benefits of green building certification. The first and the biggest challenge that we face as a tenant when I speak to someone is the first thing comes in mind of people is, oh, expensive, green means expensive, but it is not. So if you make people aware about small things that they can do, it can be very easy. It can be really easy, and the benefits that we get from there are much larger, much bigger than what we invest. So awareness is something which is very, very important. And in Malaysia, I can tell you, second thing is only maybe related to Malaysia market is more aggressive regulations, more friendly regulations. Sometime over here, if we have to make a small change also, you have to go for different kind of permission, which could take six months. It kind of become a detrimental step for people, when you have to deal with authorities for 6 months or 8 months kind of a thing.
Thank you, Atul. GOA, since we're on your screen as well, I don't know if you want to add anything else from your perspective.
From my perspective, I think government-driven will be one of the main initiative. And if, for example, if we have something like a carbon budget for each building, based on the square feet of the building, and we have a carbon tax on top of the budget, this might drive some people to some of the landowners, the building owners, to start looking into retrofitting their buildings to avoid this additional tax that they have to pay. Right. Yep.
Absolutely. And I think we did get some comments around carbon taxes and really accounting for carbon in a different way. So certainly something that hopefully will come down the line as well. Gunther?
Yeah, I also echo with Atul and Jiawei that retrofit market is actually relatively immature given the low awareness and low cost effectiveness and lack of technical guidelines. So I do really hope we can get some stronger support from government and regulators for the top-down approach, really to stimulate this market and provide some compulsory requirements to make this market more dynamic and more mature. Thank you.
Thanks, Chinchao. And Farida, you want to close us off? No
Great,
pressure of
thanks.
being the last one.
Thanks, Eleni. Yeah, I think at the market level, I fully support. I echo Atul and Jerry on the awareness and also like the market mechanisms of pushing and pulling, right, at the same time. And then, so I think awareness events like this, a huge kudos or a big shout out to you, Sintali, and all the panelists for sharing this important information, right? And then also, I think at the corporate level, I think gathering and having all the relevant information and data points is important, right? Not just on the technical side of things, but more importantly, also I think on the financials, you know, the cost and benefit, as well as the potential funding sources, right? I think there's growingly more and more financial institutions. Junchao share her experience, right? That's looking to support these efforts towards retrofitting towards green buildings. Right.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Ellen.
Thank you, Farida. And I think this is true. You know, we're talking about new builds, and new builds have to absolutely be green, but we cannot forget the existing buildings and the retrofit challenge. There's a lot of buildings on this planet today that are still going to be here by 2050. And that 2050 goal of being net zero and really limiting the impacts of climate change is coming up fast. So we really do need to tackle this retrofit challenge together. And hopefully you've been inspired by examples and case studies of not just words, but really action, that it is happening, it is possible, the ROI and the benefits are really there. And it's time for other people and other organizations to really get involved and really look at doing this at scale so that together we can all move towards net zero carbon as a globe. Thank you to our panelists for joining us today from all over the world. It's a very international panel, really great speakers, really great examples of what's happening. We will be sharing the recording and the slides in the next couple of days with all the participants. Thank you everybody for joining us, and hope you have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.